All right, so this is a test. This is a test. Test. I mean, it looks good. I think. Yeah. Does it look good? Doesn't it? Hey, noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. Welcome to the truth. Today, we're going to talk about the truth about the truth of the truth. The truth. Okay, what am I on about? So about a month ago, I made the video, The Truth About the Moors, Once and For All. I get a little dramatic, a little theatrical sometimes in the thumbnails and titles, but hey, this is a work of art. Anyways, so I made this video, and then another channel made a response video to my video. So today we're making a response video to a response video, and specifically, I'm talking about the channel, The King's Monologue. So let's check him out. Well, some of you might remember him because we sort of clashed heads, we could say, when there was the whole situation between me and the community that usually says that the ancient Egyptians were black. But then again, I've got to say that I changed my mind about him, and I think he changed his mind about me as well. I do not consider him to be a bad guy. Okay, we disagree on a few things, but this guy's no hater. And in fact, he was very respectful. I watched a little bit of this, and I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to pause it, and I'm going to watch it with you, audience, because it's nice. I really appreciate that the guy was very respectful. So sure, we still disagree on a few things, but I thought I could share this with you. I used to think he wasn't a good guy, but now I changed my mind and I think he's absolutely cool.
Okay, here we are. Welcome everyone to the King's Monologue, and welcome to the first in what looks like it's going to be a series of videos addressing the Moors. Now,
Great, I'm going to watch all of them.
why am I doing this topic of the Moors now? Well, Metatron's video, The Truth About the Moors, I believe was a response to a video that I did. Now, why did I believe this? Because the title of his video is the same as the title of my video.
I'm going to respond to that in a second when I let him finish first.
And I don't believe that's a coincidence. In fact, if you do a YouTube search on The Truth About the Moors, you'll find that these are the two top results, and there's probably nothing else going by that name beneath it. So whether consciously or subconsciously, I believe Metatron was responding to my video. He also said this.
And I think it's important to present valid, documented evidence coming directly from the sources and real historical knowledge, because unfortunately there are some creators that have agendas when it comes to the Moors, and I think it's about time to sit down and discuss them.
You know, I could be being a little bit presumptuous here, but I believe that he was referring to me when he made that statement. That being said, I do want to give Metatron some credit on...
Okay, so he's going to give me some credit, I appreciate that, but before we listen to that, I would like to respond to this. Wouldn't it be amazing if he makes a video about the truth about the Moors, I make a response video to his video, and then he makes a response to my response to his response? Okay, so I'm just going to say it how it is, okay? Feel free to believe me or not. But no, it wasn't a response to you. I haven't watched your original video. I will, though. I will watch your original. Then I'll watch all of these, all of the response videos you're putting together. Then we'll review them with my team. And we'll see if indeed there are some things where you're right and we are wrong. And if I find that to be the case, I'll be more than happy to state it publicly, because at the end of the day, I don't care. I just want the truth. So we put quite a decent amount of research on the video we produced. But then again, of course, there are some things you disagree with, and then we want to review that. And great. I mean, at the end of the day, who cares if you are the one who arrives to the truth when it comes to a couple of subjects, for instance, or us? I don't. I just care about reaching the truth. So thank you for that. Like, I got to give it to him. All right. If I were in his shoes, I would have thought the same, 100%. But no. And here is how I'm going to justify that. Now, you said that you're being perhaps presumptuous when you think that it was me responding to you. But no, I think it's not the case. I don't think you're being presumptuous. King, I'm just going to call you King. I don't know your first name, so King. I don't think you're being presumptuous. I think you're misunderstanding what I think about you and your channel after all of our interactions. So let me make that one clear for my audience and for yours. When I said that the reason why I put together my video was to respond to channels that have an agenda, that categorically excludes you. because I don't believe you have an agenda. Now, I will show you a few channels that I do think they have an agenda, because I'm not worried. I'm not afraid of pointing the finger at other creators. I do it all the time. I've just done it a couple of uploads ago. So yeah, I'll say it. Oh, I will say it. But you don't have an agenda. You know why I think that? Because even though we clashed at first, I looked at your content, and regardless of our disagreements, one thing that I recognize is that this guy puts a lot of time, a lot of hours into research. I watched his streams. Remember, I watched like 9 hours of content from him. I watched his streams in their entirety when I was building my first reaction to the whole community that responded to me because of Egypt and whatnot. I'll put a bunch of links in the description for those who want to have a recap of the law. But one thing I noticed, and I can admit that it doesn't matter if it's an opponent, intellectually speaking, or an ally. You can tell that this guy puts a monumental amount of research into looking at the primary sources. And we have that in common. And just out of personal experience, I can already imagine the situation, okay? At 9:30 in the morning, this guy starts examining the ostrich feather on top of the head on the ancient wall art, whatever the heck that he's examining. And after 15 hours, he's been on that thing, and to that he responds, yeah, I'm just almost done cross-referencing all the possible elements of iconography with the literary mentions in 16 different languages. So yeah, I'll be right there, honey. I mean, that's me, all right? And I know that this guy is exactly like that. I can tell. So, no, I don't think he has an agenda, because someone who has an agenda is someone who knows they are pushing stuff that isn't correct and will use selective bias in order to purposely leave out sources and correct interpretation to push their agenda for monetary gains, cultural gains, and whatnot. We both look at the same passages. We both look at the etymology in the original language in which they were written, but we come to different conclusions as we spend countless amounts of hours trying to reach the correct interpretations of the ancients, because of course, history, linguistics, the study of proto-languages, oftentimes it's a matter of interpretation. But even though some of his conclusions, and in fact not everything, there are things we absolutely agree on, you'll see a couple on this video, but at the end of the day, even though there are some conclusions that he reaches that I disagree with, I think he believes it. I think he believes he has the truth, just like I believe I have the truth when we come to a conclusion with the team. And so what he's sharing is not an agenda, it's something he truly believes to be the correct interpretation. And hey, you put in the work, you've been respectful, we are more than happy to review your data. So no, when I talk about people pushing an agenda, I'm not talking about you, mate. Okay then, so who are these people with the agenda? Well, there we go. Let's go, unapologetic Metatron again. Let's make some enemies. Well, the truth about the Moors. Oops. Oh, goodness gracious, I can't type, of course, because I got performance anxiety. All right, so we've got this. This is me. We go down, and indeed, there is him, The Truth About the Moors, same title. And then all of the stuff. So this guy, Sovereign Moors, how to understand the Moors, The Truth About the Moors again, actual facts about the Moors. Then someone debunked the truth about the Moors. A random Metatron in a fogmouth helmet appears. The Moors of Spain were black, exposing the facts. Did the African Moors develop Europe? The rise of the Moors. They were called Moors. The truth about the, Moors. Who were the Moors? More Moors. Moors. A wild, annoyed Metatron appears. Hidden history about the Moors. The hidden history of the Moors. Everything is hidden. Famous Black Lethal Army episodes. More Moors. The truth. The truth. The Moors created Europe's Renaissance. Yeah, the Moors, the typical Renaissance of the Moors. It's a cover-up. More truth. And then, of course, where is he? They don't want you to know this, they being us Europeans, of course. Yeah. So, let me give you a better stop screen. So no, you. I don't think you're pushing an agenda. You're a lot more eloquent than a lot of the stuff that is on YouTube. Even the title wasn't inspired by yours. I mean, at the end of the day, I've been pioneering the truth about in a lot of my Bible videos, like the truth about Jesus' arrest, more the truth here, the truth about biblical in the name of God, the truth about Sodom and Gomorrah. I've been using this for years. The truth about Adam and Eve. That's my latest video, 3 hours ago. It's doing pretty well. Truth about demons. That is a work of art. That thumbnail. Come on. You gotta give it to me. That thumbnail is great. The truth about the Sumerian leader Gilgamesh. So yeah, I've got a lot of videos. Categorical coincidence when it comes to that. Hit me with the facts.
I do want to give Metatron some credit on a couple of points. First of all, his argument is not entirely polemic. So what do I mean? He's not just essentially saying the Moors weren't black. He gives a more egalitarian, some would say balanced argument, although I don't think it's balanced if it's moving you against what is the truth, which is that the word means black. But anyway, he basically is not arguing against the fact that there were numerous black contingent that were present as part of the Moors. But then he obviously draws differentiation and tries to use any other term other than black to suggest that they're not black people. So if we get any indication that they're Berber, he says here they're Berber and they're not black, or if they're if they're North African, they're North African, they're not black.
Well, yeah, not all North Africans were black. I think we both agree with that. I believe. I mean, you'll let me know, of course. So the moment someone says North African, it doesn't automatically mean black. Of course, it doesn't mean that it isn't black either, because North Africa was extremely multi-ethnic. I don't know if you're going to like that term, but yeah, it was. Depending on what period we're looking, but the Delta, in my opinion, was multi-ethnic. Carthage was multi-ethnic, even though originally it was. In fact, I actually have a question for you. I do want to know if you think that those were black too, and that's not a trick question. I'm not going to be like, oh, you see, he said they were black. No, of course we don't believe the Phoenicians and Punic people were black. We think we were Semitic. With that being said, after the establishment of Carthage, when Carthage reached the height of its power, we know for a fact that they had full-on enclaves and entire sections of the city of Carthage which did have black people living, and that some of these black people had positions of power, and also some priests, for example, were black. So absolutely, once you step into Carthage, specifically during, for example, the Second Punic War, you would have seen a mixture of people of all sorts of different ethnicities, even though the majority to us would have not been black in that situation. And of course, as you know, I don't believe, for example, Hannibal Barca was black. I do want to know what you think about that. If you already have a video, if you do, I'll watch that. If you don't, then I'd like to ask you that as well. Do you think Hannibal Barca was black? And do you think that Phoenicians and Punic populations, including Carthaginians, were black? It's another question I have for you. But in general, in my opinion, when you say North African, it's not the same as saying someone from the Horn of Africa or someone from literally the heart of Africa.
The Arab, here they're Arab, they're not black. Every time he comes across a word, that here they're Saracen, they're not black. And all of this is incorrect. We're going to touch on that in the etymology video, which is the part 3. So we're not going to touch on that in this particular video. That being said, I did want to give him some credit for not being entirely polemic. The second area I want to give Metatron credit for is that he said this.
People that today we would refer as black Africans, and some people call sub-Saharan African. Now, I'm not really a huge fan of the term sub-Saharan, also because there were some sub-Saharan Africans, so black Africans that were living in the north of Africa at this time. See, for example, almost the majority of the population of the city of Feline. So usually I tend not to use sub-Saharan anymore, but black Africans, so we understand each other.
You know what? Well done, Metatron. I like that argument.
Thanks.
And I actually give you a lot of respect for it. This might not be a big deal to some of you, but this was a big deal to me. There are actually a number of black creators out there, some of whom I respect, who are dead set on using the term sub-Saharan. And Metatron not only said he doesn't like using that word, he also gave a very credible reason for not using that word, making it very clear there are populations that exist in and above the Sahara that were identifiably black, and therefore it is an invalid term. Therefore it is a misnomer. Therefore you can't classify people who pop up or show up as black as being sub-Saharan. So there's always got to be respect for that.
Okay, yeah, no, I double down on that, absolutely. When it comes to a few years ago, I used to use the term sub-Saharan as well, but then I realized that in fact it is not correctly descriptive. Now I know that some people be like, oh, Metatron went woke. No, I always say this on this channel. I give credit where credit is due. I'm only interested in the truth. And when it comes to the word sub-Saharan, if you talk about it geographically, then it's fine. If you want to specifically refer, because you are looking at the history only of, say, sub-Saharan Africa, so everything within the African continent that is located underneath the Sahara, there's nothing wrong with saying that. You could say sub-Saharan architecture, then you're specifically talking or representing only the architecture, for instance, monumental architecture, that occurred or happens to be located underneath the Sahara. That's fine. But when you refer to black people as sub-Saharan, you're specifically saying that black people people did not exist above the Sahara in reasonable numbers. Me and him disagree on the numbers, of course. If you want to use sub-Saharan, however, feel free to use it. I'm always for freedom of speech. Now, I don't know if you noticed this. I kind of want to point it out, even though it's rather obvious. But did you notice what he did? Like after the latest horrible response video that I got, where there was that specific element who poisoned the well, so sort of created a very negative perception of me to his audience before even starting to address my arguments. As I was saying on my video, that's a logical fallacy that a lot of people use as a form of tactic in order to strengthen their otherwise weak topics and counter arguments. He didn't do that. He did the exact opposite. And I respect that. He primed his audience positively about me by first stating the things he agreed, appreciated, and liked, and even respected about the way I made my presentation. So his audience has already been like, oh, okay, so Metatron is not the enemy, right? So he did that. And then he proceeded to address my points. What that does, it shows intellectual honesty and integrity. It also shows confidence. The man is confident in his positions and arguments, and at the same time he also ensured that his audience now is going to be willing to listen to me as well, because it didn't paint me as, oh, this guy is a fraud, or this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. No, he painted me as someone, hey, we disagree, but these are the things that I respect, and I very much appreciate that. So thank you very much, King's Monologue.
That being said, on this subject of the Moors, we're in this really weird place, because I'm not sure if Metatron watched my video about the Moors, but I wasn't really having a debate or discussion about what race were the Moors. To me, that's not even a discussion to be had. It's so black and white, literally. It's so black and white.
Let's qualify that by looking up some of the earliest definitions available in this Dictionary of the English Language by Samuel Johnson, dated 1827. It states, for the definition of Morisque, a dance after the manner of the Moors, often written Maurice or Morris, also a dancer of Morris or Moorish dance. In the same dictionary, the definition of Moorish means belonging to the Moors,
Right.
whilst Moresque means done after the manner of the Moors. And just in case there is any controversy regarding the definition of Moor, the definition for this is a Niger, a Negro, a blackamoor. Shakespeare states, getting up off the Negro's belly, the Moor is with child by you. Also in as early as 1489.
Okay, so it's moving to another one. I'd like to respond to that one because, 1827, we agree on that, absolutely. The closer you get to the modern time, the more that word will be used to describe black people. That's a fact. I agree with that. Thing is, though, that how the word is interpreted or used in 1827 doesn't necessarily coincide with the way it was used all the way back to the ancient Greeks, classical antiquity. A lot of words sustain what is called a semantic shift. He knows that, is very familiar through centuries. There are a lot of words that initially had a meaning, but then the meaning changes and they come to mean something else. To me, that's a little bit of a weak way to then justify and say, so that's what that word would have meant in period. And even when it comes to the medieval period, I have something to say, but let me see what he says. So now we are in 1489.
William Caxton states, he was so angry he became as black as a Moor.
Excellent, yes. So I agree. So late Middle Ages, yes, that word has now gained the secondary meaning of a black man. But then again, in my opinion, the way we looked at it is that the further back you go, the more Moors means just people of Islamic faith. And it does not necessarily underline an ethnic phenotypic trait, and it does not necessarily underline a skin tone, which means you could be a Moor and be black, you could be a Moor and be Semitic, you could be Moor and have fair skin. That's how we look at the etymology. He's just priming us a little bit, but he says he has a dedicated video. So I'll review your dedicated video with the team, and then we'll see, because if you bring up some really good data, this is a little weak right now. But if you bring up really good data, then we'll be happy to review it. So let's finish this, and then I'll say something else about the modern usage of the word black, which is not the same as the ancient usage.
Miranda Kaufman states that Shakespeare described Othello and Aaron of Titus Andronicus as Moors, but references to Othello's sooty bosom and Aaron's coal-black visage make it clear that both were conceived as being dark-skinned. Henry Peacham's drawing of a staging of Titus Andronicus confirms that Aaron was played as a black man,
It really doesn't require debate or discussion. So it almost feels like I'm in the twilight zone, that we're here in this space and we're discussing what race were the Moors. You know, the next thing you know, in 100 years' time, we'll be discussing what race were the Negroes. It's like, it's really bizarre. And I don't know if Metatron watched my video, but in that video, there's not really much there that's controversial in terms of the race of the Moors. Yes, there's a lot of controversy in terms of have people who are Moors historically been whitewashed to become something else. That's really what the crux of that topic was. But this whole debate about, you know, the meaning of the word Moor, there really is no controversy about this. Paintings, books, songs, literature, museum artwork to this very day bearing the name Moor. Anything that an anthropologist could ask to open a debate or a discussion about who the Moors were, it's been done. And it's conclusive and it's consistent. So there's not really a discussion there.
Well, let me respond to that then, because I do have something to say, and this has more to do with linguistics and evolution of language and language usage. I do believe there is a discussion to be had when it comes to what do we actually mean when we say black and when we say white. Here in the US, when I immigrated, I was given papers, immigration papers, and I was asked to select what I identify as when it comes to ethnicity. There were a few options. I chose white. There were a few options. I could choose between white, black, Hispanic. Now, that is how I identify myself as. I think I consider myself to be a white European. But not everyone agrees with that. Sometimes in the comments, when that comes up, people, particularly who are Americans, some Americans say, yeah, sure, you're white, but some Americans tell me, well, you're not even white, you're Italian. That's interesting, because the first time I heard that, I was like, hold on a minute, what do you mean? What? Why are you using nationality as opposed to this sort of ethnic classifier that we utilize? And that is because I came to find out that some people in America, not all of them, but some people still use a little bit of an older definition of white, which is connected to how Benjamin Franklin described white people, which pretty much means people of Anglo-Saxon descent. So clearly, if that's what white means, then yeah, I wouldn't be white. Neither would be an Irishman, even though they're as white as my headphones, and even some Nordic people might not be considered white, depending on who you ask. So clearly, they are using something that is more connected to heritage, whereas I'm using something that is more descriptive of the lack of melanin in my skin. So where am I going with this? What I'm trying to say is, if we, in the modern period, people who were born in the same century, and sometimes in the same decade, can't agree on whether someone is white or not, because we have different usages and we group things differently, how can we be so sure that when someone 600 years ago, or when someone 2,000, 3,000 years ago utilizes the word black and utilizes the word white, because that was used in classical antiquity as well, by the way, I think it becomes presumptuous. Not you. I'm not saying you're presumptuous. You're pretty humble. But I'm saying it becomes presumptuous intellectually. Oh, they said they were black in a language that is like ancient Greek from the Attic period, or ancient Egyptian from 3,000 years ago, and you immediately overlap it and juxtapose it perfectly with the modern conception of what a black man is. If white people between Europe and America already have disagreements with the term white, how much more can there be disagreement when describing a person as being black or not, when it comes to the fact that Africa has the highest degree of phenotypic trait variance in the world? And you know that because you said that on one of your videos. I said that on one of my videos, the one about whether white people existed or not. So all I'm saying here is these terms that classify humans and put them into categories changed constantly. What is black? What is white? What's a brown man? Even that one, if you think about it. Why is someone classified brown and they are not African? Say they are a Middle Eastern man, just to say one type, or maybe an Indian, okay? Even though the shade of their skin is the exact same as some shades of brown that you find in Africa, considering what we just said, that the level of variety of color between someone who is as black as coal, as you mentioned, someone who is pretty dark, like you, dark complexion, or someone who is more of a lighter brown, even though they have the exact same hue, why is one a brown man and one is a black man? Like, all of this is arbitrary anyways. It is very strongly tied to cultural elements rather than scientific classifications. It's not like we're counting the exact amount of melanin that you've got packed in your skin with chemical precision. Not to mention that as I have demonstrated several times when it comes to, for example, the ancient Greeks, when they use the term that sometimes is translated as black, they are meaning a tan. Not he's gonna explode now. I'm not saying, oh, the Moors weren't black, they were tanned. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying there are some situations in which you and like Quilimica and a few other creators that have made response videos to me, you take a term that I know for a fact the Greeks used for both situations in which it's a tan, like with the Ulysses, and a situation where it's not a tan and it's an actual skin hue. It's the same term, but you only translate it as black or interpret it as black, whereas I give it a little bit of, it depends on the context. And I don't think it's that simple of a statement like you're making it to be. Because someone says, oh, I use the term black. Okay, in what language? In what context? The way we classify things in Romance languages is completely different to the way you guys do in English, to the way old Norse people did, how they called Africans blue. I don't think it's because they really thought that you guys were blue, but simply because they used blue as a way to contextualize something exotic. And therefore, there are layers to the specific choice of words that sometimes we give. I always give the example of white wine, even though it's yellow, sort of golden yellow, we still call it white. So not everything is always representative of the exact colors we see. So I do think it's a much deeper topic. But let's continue because I'm very talkative today.
However, given the degree of misinformation that's currently peddled by our education systems, one can only empathize with the fact that people have quite a skewed view on who the Moors are. And in that setting, I can somewhat empathize with the fact that people maybe haven't even heard that the Moors were black or didn't have any association of the term Moors with black people. The one reason I'm going to take this as a bit of an opportunity is because there is a ghastly Wikipedia page about the Moors out. And I've wanted to address this for some time. Luckily enough, and I'm not going to accuse him of using the same talking points, I don't think he did, but some of the talking points that Metatron used come up in the Wikipedia page. So I thought, you know what? Two birds with one stone. Let me address my hatred for that Wikipedia page about the Moors, whilst also addressing some of the arguments that Metatron raises in his video. So I've used this as a bit of an opportunity. And as you can see, this video here that you're on right now, this is part one of what I deem will be a 5-part series. And as you can see from the title, the focus of this part is the Cantigas de Santa Maria. I intend to bring to surface how they use this information in a deceptive way. I'm not going to give you too many spoilers, but let me be clear that although this is a response to Metatron's video that is called The Truth About the Moors, once and for all. She just had to put that in at the end.
I did. I had no choice in the matter, mate. It's just stronger than me. I tried to resist the urge. I couldn't do it. It just sounds once and for all. I love it. It's just me.
And
oh, that's interesting. If he's going to review that, that'd be really fun to see. So I do agree him. Now, one thing I agree with him here is the fact that he says, yeah, we need to be careful because in academia, there are some people that are pushing out misinformation. And that is the truth. That's why I don't know if it's the case with this specific topic, but I appreciate the fact that he's sort of pushing his subscribers to use critical thinking, review the data themselves, and not just trust authorities when it comes to the educational system. Because sometimes, or someone with a degree or someone who is being put in charge of a specific education sector, it doesn't mean that they're always right. And sometimes they do push agendas. I mean, that's what I do with this channel, isn't it? So that's something we agree. I appreciate that we agree with the methodology, and whether we reach different conclusions or not.
This video is not a direct response to all of the arguments that he's raised. He's only really touched upon some of these points. And as I do further videos, you're going to find that I'm going to approach them the same way. Some of them are going to be Metatron's points, but some of them are going to be points that have probably been raised on the Wikipedia page, or maybe they're arguing or talking points against the Moors being black that I just want to address.
Okay, it's me and my team. It was the work of me and the main classicist, by the way. It's not just me. Man, look at that production. I gotta do like an animated thing like that. Love it.
When it comes to the Moors, attack.
Okay, that's a good point, but let me respond to that this way. Christianity was a lot more easily understood by Christian Europeans than Islam. So I don't think it's a fair comparison. Yeah, when it comes to Christian populations, I think the Christians had a much better understanding of who was what. And because they are themselves Christian, majority of Europeans are Christian, right? Particularly depending on the time, of course. When they describe another population, like you're saying, and they were Christian, it doesn't mean that now they think that, oh, everyone was Christian with that, every Christian was a Visigoth, and that would be a fallacious association. But when it comes to using a sort of misnomer, like the Moors, and because the medieval people were like, oh yeah, they're all Muslims, yeah, that's not strange to imagine at all. You know where that happens as well? The way the ancient Greeks defined the Romans when they first came into contact with them, I'm talking about the Latins, like the earliest population, they called them just another type of Etruscans. They called them Etruscans. They didn't even know that there was a distinction between the Latini, so the Latins, and the other Italic populations like the Sabines and the Etruscans of Etruria. Now, eventually, they will figure that one out after the Romans take over the Etruscans, and now they are in power. And that's when the Greeks are starting to take notice. They're like, oh, no, these are different. They're not just all Etruscans. But yeah, they did that, absolutely. That is why I think this point is not as strong as you think. I have no way to... It's an unfalsifiable statement. I have no way to prove or disprove the fact. Regardless of that, as I say, be that as it may, I don't think it's as flimsy as you make it to be. Because... not everyone is going to be perfectly descriptive of a people that they consider to be the enemy. That is my counterpoint to this. So I'm not going to try and defend against someone else's point. He's not necessarily replying to me when he adds all of the different layers of course, the conspiracy that I'm not attacking. Some conspiracies are real. Some conspiracies are nonsense. I'm not using that to undermine your argument in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not going to defend that because that's not my argument. But to say that there is no controversy, no ambiguity when it comes to a term that is that ancient, Mauros, in ancient Greek, sorry, but that's kind of out of place. Of course it is. I think it is quite ambiguous. And that's why we need to offer several possibilities if you're going to be intellectually honest when it comes to the interpretation of the terminology. It's similar to when we try, particularly because with colors in ancient Greek, I mean, I've got a dedicated video of how they interpreted blue, for example, in all the different shades. And on a recent video when I was discussing the actual colors of ancient Roman emperors and how we don't exactly know. For example, there is a word for blonde, but there is a word, maybe it's blonde, but it might be light brown. And then when we describe their eyes, it could be gray or it could be green. And we don't know because the terms are ambiguous. In classical Latin, or Latin in general, and in ancient Greek, specifically when we discuss color, there is a certain level of ambiguity. There absolutely is a certain level of ambiguity which necessitates any scholar, linguist, that is trying to give us what kind of color is that specifically trying to identify, they need to give us a wheel of possibilities. And that's how it is with ancient Greek. I understand that you want to say, no, this term used absolutely means black in the ethnic modern sense. I disagree with that very strongly. But maybe I'll watch your full video on this and then we'll watch a little more on this and then I'll probably have to just get the team. But good presentation so far. Been enjoying it a lot. 1 to 1284 of the year of our Lord.
Commissioned by the same ruler. It demonstrated the diverse, multicultural and intellectual nature of Alfonso's famed courts.
Okay.
Let's start with this image, which is front and center of the Wikipedia page,
Please.
with the caption confidently stating, Castilian ambassadors attempting to convince Moorish Almohad, King Abu Hafs Umar al-Murtada, to join their alliance.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds conclusive enough, that is, until you examine the source material and realize that this caption is a bold-faced lie. The Cantigas de Santa Maria, in its entirety, never directly references King Abu Hafs Umar al-Murtada by picture or by song. Do remember it's a songbook.
Mm-hmm.
That may be why this image is not showing any original caption, because this description is a deceitful fabrication.
Very interesting. So I wonder who this man is then, according to you.
The image likely depicts one of the numerous scholars and nobles from Visigothic or Levantine Islamic families who were commonly hosted by Alfonso X, Either way, these aren't identifiable as Moors, and that character is certainly not identifiable as King Abu Hafs Umar al-Murtada. But that isn't all. In fact, we're just beginning.
Interesting.
Okay, so if you've got this far into my video, I'm going to take a guess that you're finding it somewhat informative, somewhat valuable, somewhat entertaining. Thank you very much. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the like button so that this video gets circulation. And if you are, then I would welcome you to join my patrons.
Yeah, absolutely. Go check him out. If you like his content, do subscribe, because I think we're going to do a few back and forth with this. Okay? So that way you're not going to miss his opinions, my opinions, and those of my team. And then, yeah, it could be a very interesting discourse. And as you can see, I'd like to underline, what a stark difference in the way King, please tell me your name, by the way. I mean, I don't mind calling you King, but still King responds to me, and the way the other guy responded to me. What a massive difference. So I'm going to stop it here, and we're going to make it into a multi-episode series, because I think this is great. This is great. I'm having a great time. Appreciate his time. Thank you, King's Monologue, for providing this and for being respectful. That's always appreciated. And I'm going to leave it to this, and then I'll get back to this. Yeah, and we'll make a few videos. It's going to be great. So thank you very much for watching, Noble Ones. I hope you learned something from me or from him. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. See you tomorrow.